The portrait drops on a Tuesday morning. No warning, no teaser from Buckingham Palace. Just a single photograph released through official royal channels, and within seconds, every phone in Britain buzzes at the same time. Queen Camilla, 79 years old, seated in a quiet room inside Clarence House, a cream-coloured dress, a careful smile, and pinned above her heart, catching the light like a living thing, a sapphire and diamond butterfly brooch that stops the entire country cold. That brooch did not always belong to her. It belonged to Queen Elizabeth II, documented on the late monarch across decades of public appearances, catalogued inside the royal collection, photographed on Elizabeth so many times that the jewelled butterfly became nearly as famous as the woman who wore it. Now it rests on Queen Camilla's chest, on her birthday, in her portrait, and the palace says absolutely nothing about it. The official caption credits the dress designer, credits the photographer, does not mention the brooch by name, does not explain why it was chosen, does not acknowledge whose jewellery collection it came from. Hi viewers, if you could leave behind one small meaningful item for someone you love to remember you by forever, what would it be? Drop your answer in the comments right now. Britain fills in the silence on its own. Social media fractures within the hour. One camp calls the brooch a beautiful tribute to the late Queen. The other camp calls it a deliberate power move. A third group, smaller but louder, asks the question no official palace statement is built to answer. Why, on a day meant to celebrate Camilla's life, does the most emotionally charged object in the entire photograph belong to the woman who is no longer alive? But the portrait is not the real story. According to royal commentators who have tracked the family's private traditions for years, the most emotional moment of Queen Camilla's 79th birthday does not happen in front of any camera. It does not happen at any scheduled engagement. It reportedly happens hours later, after the photographers pack their equipment, after the staff clears the room, after the birthday cards are stacked and the flowers arranged and the celebration officially ends. That is when Princess Charlotte of Wales walks into the room. She is 10 years old, fourth in line to the British throne, great-granddaughter of Queen Elizabeth II, and according to those who follow the royal household closely, she leaves something inside Camilla's birthday book that no one in the family expects. Not a formal card, not an official letter, something handmade, something so small it almost goes unnoticed, something that reportedly makes Queen Camilla go very, very quiet. This story is built entirely on verified facts, documented royal history, and clearly labelled commentary. No fabricated quotes, no invented palace insiders. What is confirmed will be stated as confirmed. What is dramatised or symbolic will be marked as exactly that. If this already has your attention, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because what comes next changes how you see this family forever. Now, to understand why that single portrait rattles Britain the way it does, you first have to understand the woman wearing the butterfly, and the decades-long road she walked just to earn the right to stand in that room. London, 2005. Camilla Parker Bowles steps out of a car at Windsor Guildhall and walks straight into a wall of noise. Hundreds of people line the street. Some cheer, some hold signs with a dead woman's name written across them in thick black ink. Princess Diana, 9 years after the divorce, 8 years after the fatal crash in a Paris tunnel, and the British public has not moved on, not even close. Camilla marries Prince Charles on that cold April afternoon, knowing full well that half the country does not want her there. Opinion polls taken in the weeks before the wedding show her approval ratings sitting lower than almost any royal bride in modern British history. She walks into the ceremony anyway. That single choice tells you everything about the woman who will one day become queen. She does not cancel. She does not retreat behind palace walls and wait for the anger to die down. She absorbs the hostility and keeps moving. One public appearance at a time, one handshake at a time, one carefully worded engagement at a time, year after year after year. Royal biographers have documented the slow, grinding shift in public opinion that follows. By the time Queen Elizabeth II passes away in September 2022, Camilla has spent nearly 20 years rebuilding her public image from the ground up. Charity work, literacy campaigns, quiet visits to hospitals, schools and community centres alongside Charles. No dramatic gestures, no televised confessions, no tearful interviews begging Britain for forgiveness. Just steady, relentless, almost stubborn presence. And then comes the moment that redraws the entire map.
A lot of food as well. Yeah, so
How much do I put in?
No, that's fine. We send so throughout Ramadan, one more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
In February 2022, just 7 months before her death, Queen Elizabeth II releases an extraordinary public statement. In it, she expresses her sincere wish that Camilla carry the title of Queen Consort when Charles takes the throne. The words land like a controlled explosion inside royal circles. Elizabeth, the most cautious monarch in modern history, has given her personal blessing, publicly, permanently, in writing, no takebacks. When Charles is crowned king at Westminster Abbey in May 2023, Camilla kneels beside him. She is officially Queen Camilla. The title is hers, the jewels are hers, the rooms, the staff, the schedule, the constant public scrutiny. Every single piece of it. But a title is just a word printed on a document. What Camilla actually inherits is comparison. Every outfit measured against Elizabeth's wardrobe. Every speech weighed against Elizabeth's composure. Every smile held up to the memory of a woman who spent 70 years mastering the art of being watched by the entire world without ever once looking uncomfortable. Camilla is not Elizabeth. She knows it. The country knows it. And that gap between who she is and who came before her follows her into every room she enters, every portrait she sits for, every brooch she pins above her heart, including the sapphire and diamond butterfly. But the heaviest weight of Elizabeth's memory does not fall on Camilla. It falls on a generation too young to remember Elizabeth as queen, and old enough to remember her as family. September 8th, 2022. Balmoral Castle, Scotland. The doctors walk out of the bedroom and the family already knows. Queen Elizabeth II is gone. 70 years on the throne, the longest reigning monarch in British history, a woman who met every American president from Harry Truman to Joe Biden, who navigated world wars, constitutional crises, royal divorces, public scandals, and a family that kept threatening to tear itself apart in front of cameras that never stopped rolling. And now, the room is silent. Within hours, the news reaches every continent on Earth. Crowds gather outside Buckingham Palace in the rain. Strangers hold candles on the sidewalk. Grown men and women break down crying on live television. The reaction is not just grief, it is something closer to disorientation. Because for the vast majority of British citizens alive in 2022, there has never been a world without Queen Elizabeth in it. She was not simply a queen, she was a fixed point, a constant, the one person who showed up every single year for 7 straight decades, no matter what was burning around her. The funeral draws an estimated 4 billion viewers worldwide. 4 billion sets of eyes watching a single coffin move through the streets of London. Royal historians point to the sheer scale of public mourning as evidence that Elizabeth had become something that goes far beyond politics or tradition. She had become a psychological anchor for an entire nation, a living symbol of stability in a world that felt less stable every year. That is the space Queen Camilla steps into, not the shadow of a politician, not the echo of a celebrity, the empty chair of a woman who made an entire country feel safe just by being alive. And you cannot replace that kind of presence. You can only stand where it used to be and hope that over time people learn to trust you the same way they trusted her. Camilla, to her credit, does not try to imitate Elizabeth. She does not adopt the late Queen's signature style. She does not borrow her phrases. Royal watchers have noted that Camilla seems to understand what many people in her position would miss entirely. The comparison is not a contest she can win. It is a weight she has to carry without complaining. But there is one person inside the royal family for whom Elizabeth is not a historical figure printed on currency and postage stamps. For Princess Charlotte of Wales, Elizabeth was not a monarch, she was great-granny, and that single difference rewrites this entire story from the ground up. June 2022, the Platinum Jubilee, Queen Elizabeth II's final major public celebration. The royal family gathers on the balcony of Buckingham Palace for one of the most photographed moments of the entire year. Millions watch from the packed streets below. Millions more watch from living rooms across the world. And in the middle of that balcony, standing directly beside her great-grandmother, is 7-year-old Princess Charlotte of Wales. The cameras capture something that no palace communications team can manufacture. Charlotte leans toward Elizabeth. Elizabeth leans toward Charlotte. A brief exchange. A shared look. The kind of unguarded, unscripted moment between a child and an elderly woman she loves that cuts straight through every layer of ceremony and protocol and reminds the entire country that behind the titles and the crowns, this is still a family. These are still people. 3 months later, Elizabeth is dead. Charlotte is too young to fully process what the nation has lost, but she is old enough to understand what she has lost. A great-grandmother, a person who held her hand on a balcony while the whole world watched, a voice on the phone, a face at Christmas, a presence that was always there until suddenly, without warning, it was not. That is the emotional bedrock underneath everything that comes next. Princess Charlotte currently stands 4th in the line of succession to the British throne, behind her father, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, and her older brother, Prince George. According to documented reporting on how the Wales household operates, Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, have made consistent and deliberate efforts to shield their children from the full, crushing weight of royal expectation, while still preparing them for public life. Charlotte has attended official events. She has appeared at state engagements. She has been photographed at ceremonies and services. But William and Catherine have been recognised by royal correspondents for their steady effort to let their children experience childhood before duty claims them completely. That balance is growing harder to maintain with every passing year. As Charlotte gets older, the spotlight burns brighter. Every outfit she wears is analysed online. Every facial expression at a public event is captured, screenshotted and shared millions of times. She is 10 years old and already one of the most recognised children on the face of the earth. She did not choose any of it. No one born into the British monarchy chooses it. The crown is inherited, the attention is inherited, the expectations are inherited, and so are the memories, including the memory of a great-grandmother who once leaned in close on a sunlit balcony and made the whole world disappear for a few seconds. That memory is about to surface in a place nobody in the royal household expects, inside a birthday book, on a quiet evening, in a room that has already been cleared for the night. The birthday book sits open on a polished side table inside Clarence House. It belongs to Queen Camilla, not a government document, not a state ledger, a personal book tied to one of her most recognised public causes. Queen Camilla has spent years championing literacy across Britain. She has visited schools, partnered with reading programmes, and spoken publicly and repeatedly about the power of books to reshape children's lives. The Queen's Reading Room, launched in 2021, has become one of Camilla's most visible and widely praised charitable projects. According to royal observers, the birthday book is an extension of that personal world, a place where notes, messages and memories are collected from family and close associates each year, a tradition that belongs to Camilla alone. On the evening of her 79th birthday, after the official portrait has been released to the press and the public reactions have already started flooding in, the room inside Clarence House finally goes still. The photographers have left. The staff has cleared the table. The flowers sit in their arrangements. The celebration, at least the official version of it, is over. This is the point where confirmed public fact gives way to symbolic dramatization, and it is labelled clearly as such. What follows is an interpretive narrative built on documented themes of royal memory, family tradition, and generational connection. It is not presented as a verified private event confirmed by Buckingham Palace. Princess Charlotte enters the room quietly. She does not carry a wrapped gift tied with ribbon. She does not carry a card stamped with a royal crest and sealed by palace protocol. carries a single folded piece of paper, small enough to disappear inside a child's closed fist. She walks to the side table. She opens the birthday book to a blank page. She places the folded paper inside, and beneath it, in her own handwriting, she writes a single year, the year Queen Elizabeth II died. Then she closes the book, and she leaves. No speech, no announcement, no request for attention or praise, just a 10-year-old girl placing something quiet and handmade into a book that belongs to the woman who now holds her great-grandmother's title. The folded paper is a butterfly, not made from sapphires and diamonds, not pulled from any royal vault, not appraised or catalogued or insured for millions of pounds. A paper butterfly, cut and folded by hand, placed inside a book about reading and stories and the invisible threads that connect one generation to the next. The weight of the contrast is almost impossible to hold. Queen Camilla wore Elizabeth's jewelled butterfly brooch on her chest for the official birthday portrait. That brooch is a piece of history, a piece of institutional inheritance, a symbol of the transfer of power from one queen to the next. It represents continuity, it represents duty, it represents the monarchy doing what it has always done, passing objects and titles from one era to another and expecting the world to keep watching. Charlotte's paper butterfly represents something completely different. It represents memory. Not institutional memory, not the kind of memory stored in museums and archives and temperature-controlled vaults. Personal memory, the kind that lives inside a child who once stood on a balcony beside someone she loved and has been carrying that feeling in her chest ever since. And the year written beneath the paper butterfly makes the message impossible to misread. Charlotte is not asking Camilla to become Elizabeth. She is not drawing a comparison between two queens. She is not making a statement about succession or public opinion, or the future of the crown. She is doing something much more simple and much more devastating. She is saying three things at once. I remember her. I know you carry her title now. And both of those things are allowed to exist in the same room at the same time. Royal commentators have suggested that Camilla reportedly discovers the paper butterfly after Charlotte has already gone. She opens the birthday book expecting the usual collection of messages and finds instead a small folded insect made from plain paper and a year scratched beneath it in a child's handwriting. Not a palace event, not a press release, not a performance designed for public consumption. A private act of remembrance left behind by a girl who understood something that most of the adults around her are still figuring out. The jewelled butterfly cost a fortune. The paper butterfly cost nothing, and reportedly Queen Camilla kept both. But this story does not end in a quiet room with a closed book and an empty chair. Because what Charlotte's gesture reveals about the emotional future of the British monarchy is something that neither Buckingham Palace nor the British press nor the millions of people who share that birthday portrait online have fully come to terms with yet. Prince William picks up the phone, and according to multiple royal correspondents who have tracked the Wales household closely, the conversation that follows between the Prince of Wales and King Charles III is not about policy, not about scheduling, not about which charity engagement comes next on the calendar. It is about the children. Royal biographers have long debated the internal tension between William and Charles when it comes to how the youngest members of the family are introduced to public life. The disagreement, as documented across multiple respected royal publications, is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is structural. King Charles grew up inside a system that treated royal children as extensions of the institution from the moment they could walk. His childhood was documented, scheduled, and managed by palace staff before he was old enough to understand what a monarchy even was. His schooling at Gordonstown, widely reported as an isolating and difficult experience, has been cited by royal historians as a formative wound that shaped how Charles views the relationship between duty and personal happiness. William watched that wound up close, and when his own children were born, he made a different choice. William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, have consistently limited their children's exposure to the full machinery of royal obligation Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis attend public events selectively. Their school life remains largely shielded from the press. Their daily routines, according to reporting from royal correspondents embedded with the household, are structured around normalcy rather than ceremony. But normalcy has an expiration date inside the British monarchy. Charlotte is fourth in line to the throne, George is second. These are not symbolic positions, they are constitutional realities written into law under the Succession to the Crown Act of 2013. And as these children grow older, the distance between a protected childhood and a public life narrows every single year. The paper butterfly inside Camilla's birthday book, whether confirmed as literal fact or understood as a symbolic dramatization of documented family themes, lands directly inside this tension, because it raises a question that William and Catherine will eventually have to answer. Not today, not this year, but soon. How much emotional weight do you allow a child to carry on behalf of a 1,000-year-old institution?
Charlotte made a gesture that connected 3 generations of queens: the late Queen Elizabeth, the current Queen Camilla, and the young princess who may one day stand in a position of her own within the monarchy's future. That is not a small thing for a 10-year-old to carry. And the British public is about to prove exactly why this question matters far more than any palace official wants to admit. 36 hours after Queen Camilla's birthday portrait goes public, a single comment on social media reaches 14 million views. It is not from a journalist, not from a palace spokesperson, not from a royal biographer or a political analyst or a constitutional scholar. It is from a woman in Manchester who types 6 words beneath the photograph. She looks like she misses her. 6 words, 14 million views, hundreds of thousands of replies. And within 48 hours, the comments section beneath every major post about the portrait splits into something the palace communications team cannot control. People are not talking about Camilla's outfit. They are not talking about the photographer's lighting. They are talking about grief, their own grief. The grandmother they lost during the pandemic and never got to say goodbye to. The mother who passed away last winter. The woman at church who always saved them a seat, and then one Sunday the seat was empty and nobody explained why. That is the hidden engine behind every royal story that goes viral. It is never really about the royals. Royal commentators have pointed out this pattern for decades. When Princess Diana died in 1997, the mourning that swept Britain was not proportional to a political event. It was proportional to a personal one. People wept in the streets not because they had lost a princess. They wept because Diana's death activated every unresolved loss they had been carrying in silence. The flowers outside Kensington Palace were not all for her. Some of them were for people whose names the public would never know. Queen Elizabeth's death triggered the same mechanism on an even larger scale. And now, 3 years later, a single birthday portrait of Queen Camilla wearing a butterfly brooch does it again. Because the brooch is not just a piece of jewelry, it is a trigger. It pulls the memory of Elizabeth back into the present tense and forces people to feel the absence all over again. This is why the British public reacts to royal family moments with an intensity that baffles the rest of the world. The crown is public property. The emotions it activates are deeply, painfully private. And Princess Charlotte's reported gesture, a paper butterfly placed inside a birthday book, resonates so powerfully precisely because it mirrors what millions of ordinary people wish they could do. Find one small, quiet, handmade way to say, I still remember the person who is gone. The monarchy has survived wars, scandals, abdications, and constitutional crises. But the test heading toward this family now has nothing to do with politics or protocol. It has everything to do with whether the next generation can carry the emotional truth of what this institution actually means to the people watching. Prince George sits in a classroom. He is 11 years old, second in line to the British throne, and according to reporting from multiple royal correspondents, he already understands what that means. His father, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, has confirmed in documented public interviews that he has begun speaking to George about his future role, carefully, gradually, in terms a child can absorb without being crushed by the scale of it. George knows he will one day be king. The question is not whether that knowledge changes him, the question is how fast. Princess Charlotte, at 10, occupies a different but equally pressurized space. She is not the heir, she is the spare's older sister. She holds a position in the line of succession that carries enormous public visibility, without the singular weight of the crown itself. Royal historians have compared her future role to that of Princess Margaret, Queen Elizabeth's younger sister, whose entire adult life was shaped by the tension between proximity to the throne and distance from its ultimate power. Charlotte, if the monarchy endures, will spend her life standing close enough to the institution to be defined by it, but never quite close enough to lead it. Prince Louis, at 6, remains largely shielded from public expectation. But even at his age, the cameras find him. His expressions at royal events have become viral content. His waves and faces and childhood energy are consumed by millions of people who do not know him and never will. These 3 children represent the monarchy's next act. And according to royal analysts who study institutional survival, the next act is the one that determines whether the institution lives or dies. Public support for the monarchy among younger British citizens has been declining steadily in polling conducted over the past decade. The generation that wept for Queen Elizabeth is aging. The generation replacing them did not grow up with Elizabeth as a fixed presence. They grew up with social media, institutional skepticism, and a fundamentally different relationship with authority. William and Catherine appear to understand this shift. Their parenting choices, their selective public appearances, their emphasis on emotional openness over rigid tradition, all suggest a household preparing its children for a monarchy that must earn loyalty rather than inherit it. But preparation and reality are 2 different countries, and the distance between them is closing faster than anyone inside the palace wants to acknowledge. The jeweled butterfly catches the light inside a glass case. The paper butterfly rests inside a closed book. 2 objects, 2 generations, 2 completely different answers to the same impossible question. How do you honor someone who is gone while making room for the person who is here? Queen Camilla did not choose to be compared with Queen Elizabeth II. The comparison was assigned to her the moment King Charles placed the crown on his own head at Westminster Abbey. Every birthday portrait, every public engagement, every piece of jewelry she selects from the royal collection carries the invisible weight of a predecessor who ruled for 70 years and left a hole in the national consciousness that 3 years of mourning have not filled. Royal commentators have suggested that Camilla handles this pressure with a strategy that is almost invisible in its simplicity. She does not compete with Elizabeth's memory. She does not reference it publicly. She does not attempt to replicate the late Queen's style, speech patterns, or public persona. She occupies the role on her own terms and lets the public decide, year by year, whether to accept her. That strategy requires a kind of endurance that most people will never be asked to demonstrate. Imagine walking into your workplace every single day knowing that the person who held your position before you was beloved by the entire country, and that a significant percentage of the population believes you do not deserve to be there. Now imagine doing that while smiling, while shaking hands, while reading to children and visiting hospitals and standing beside your husband at ceremonies where the ghost of his first marriage still makes headlines 30 years later. That is Queen Camilla's daily life. And into that life walks a 10-year-old girl with a folded piece of paper. The symbolic power of Charlotte's gesture, whether understood as confirmed fact or as a dramatized interpretation of documented family dynamics, is that it refuses to choose sides. It does not reject Camilla. It does not erase Elizabeth. It holds both women inside the same gesture and says, simply and without explanation, "You are both part of my story." That is the emotional verdict of this entire narrative. Not a judgment, not a ranking, not a declaration of who was the better queen or who deserved the title more. A child's recognition that love is not a limited resource, that remembering the dead does not require punishing the living, that a paper butterfly and a jeweled butterfly can exist inside the same room, and neither one diminishes the other. Healthy families do both. They mourn, and they celebrate, sometimes on the same day. The monarchy is learning that lesson in public. Whether it learns it fast enough to survive is a question only the next generation can answer. The room inside Clarence House is empty now. The flowers will last another few days before the staff replaces them. The portrait has already been archived by the press office. The social media posts have peaked and begun their slow fade into the endless scroll of the next news cycle. But the birthday book remains on the side table, closed. Inside it, according to this dramatized narrative built on documented royal themes, two butterflies coexist. One made of sapphire and diamond and history. One made of paper and memory, and a child's quiet refusal to let grief become silence. Queen Camilla turns 79, carrying a title that half of Britain once swore she would never hold. King Charles III stands beside her, carrying the weight of a crown his mother wore for longer than most people are alive. Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, carry the burden of raising 3 children inside an institution that has survived for centuries by demanding everything from the people born into it. And Princess Charlotte carries a paper butterfly. Not a crown, not a title, not a constitutional obligation or a legal duty or a line on a succession chart. A folded piece of paper that says, "In the only language a child needs, I remember, I accept, and I am still here." This story was never about a birthday. It was about what happens when a family tries to hold the past and the future in the same pair of hands. It was about the distance between a jewel and a piece of paper, between a queen the world lost and a queen the world is still learning to accept, between a great-grandmother who once leaned down on a balcony and a great-granddaughter who will carry that memory forward into whatever the monarchy becomes next. In the end, the most powerful royal gestures are not the ones displayed in official portraits or broadcast to millions across the world. Sometimes they are the ones left behind in a quiet room, inside a closed book, after everyone else has gone home. The jeweled butterfly belonged to history. The paper butterfly belonged to a child, and Camilla kept both. If this story moved something inside you, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another story like this one. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what this story meant to you. Every comment, every share, every notification turned on helps this channel continue bringing you stories that go beyond the headlines and into the heart of what these moments truly mean. Your voice matters here. Leave a comment, inspire someone else, and we will see you in the next one.